Imagine waking up one day and realizing that nearly everything you've believed about your place in the world was a carefully crafted illusion, not a conspiracy born in the shadows, but a system built in plain sight. Over generations, this illusion has been refined, whispered into your thoughts, injected into your choices, and stamped upon your identity. What if I told you that the greatest lie ever sold is not a headline or a policy, not a politician's speech or media spin, but something far more subtle and far more dangerous? This lie is so deeply embedded into the fabric of our reality that we mistake it for truth. We defend it, build our lives around it, and, in doing so, willingly surrender our autonomy, purpose, and even our happiness. We don't just follow society's rules, we believe they are inherently true. This video will unravel that lie, and more importantly, it will explore how society has quietly learned to control not just our behaviors, but our beliefs, our dreams, and the very way we see ourselves. Our journey will take us from ancient philosophical reflections to cutting-edge insights in modern psychology and sociology. We will look at how these quiet forces shape our world and ultimately, at the most powerful truth of all, one that could shatter the illusion and free your mind. But you must stay with me until the end, because the final revelation is not only the most important, it's the one they never wanted you to hear. It starts innocently enough. You're born into a world already in motion. By the time you can speak, you're surrounded by language, norms, and expectations. You're told what's good and what's bad, what's acceptable and what's shameful. Your mind, still tender and open, begins to absorb it all. You don't question it. How could you? You don't yet know how to. By the time you go to school, the machinery is already running. You're taught to obey, to sit still, to follow instructions. You're rewarded, not for questioning, but for compliance. You're praised when you conform, corrected when you stray. Grading systems and behavioral charts condition you, subtly but consistently, to seek validation from authority. But here's where the lie begins to take form: that your value is determined by how well you fit into the system. That your success is measured not by your fulfillment, but by your productivity. That your identity is a product of your profession, your appearance, your possessions. From billboards to textbooks, the message is consistent: be what we expect, and you will be rewarded. But what happens when you don't fit? What happens when your spirit whispers truths that contradict the narrative? Most people suppress that voice. They fear rejection, ridicule, or worse. This is where the deception deepens. Society convinces you that your dissatisfaction is your fault, that if you're unhappy, it's because you're not trying hard enough, not thinking positively enough, or not grinding, hustling, or manifesting correctly. The system deflects responsibility, keeping you trapped in a cycle of self-blame. But let's pause for a moment and ask, who benefits from this arrangement? When you feel insecure, corporations sell you products designed to fix what's broken. When you're obedient, institutions retain their power. When you believe you're free, but act only within the boundaries society has drawn, you become the perfect citizen, the ideal consumer, the manageable mind. The famous sociologist Erich Fromm once warned that modern freedom is often an illusion. In his book Escape from Freedom, he explained how people willingly trade true liberty for security, order, and belonging. They submit to systems of control, not because they are forced to, but because they've been conditioned to see control as comfort. This is the foundation upon which the lie is built. It is not imposed on you by force, it is embedded within you, silently. It begins with your desire for validation, your need to fit in, and your longing to be accepted. Society doesn't need to chain you, it simply defines what is normal. And once that standard is accepted, anyone outside it is labeled deviant, dangerous, or broken. But have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life, chasing goals that you didn't choose? Have your passions been buried under the weight of external expectations? That discomfort you feel, it's your true self, stirring beneath the surface, trying to break free. Yet, the vast majority of people remain silent. They conform, afraid to challenge the established norms. The lie thrives precisely because it doesn't feel like a lie. It feels like truth, like culture, like tradition. It feels safe. That's what makes it so powerful and so difficult to escape. This is the twisted brilliance of the system. It doesn't look like oppression, it feels like belonging. It doesn't seem like control, it feels like stability. And that's why it works. The brilliance of this system lies in its ability to shape your behavior through reinforcement. From the earliest years, you are conditioned to obey, to conform, to fit within predefined roles. This is not just about following rules, it's about shaping your identity. You're taught that your worth is determined by how well you adapt to the norms and expectations around you. Take, for example, the work of renowned psychologist B.F. Skinner, who demonstrated how behavioral reinforcement can shape not just actions, but entire identities. Skinner showed that by rewarding certain behaviors, individuals can be molded into predictable patterns of compliance. The principle is simple. Reward the behavior you want to see. Punish the behavior you don't. The more this is repeated, the stronger the pattern becomes. This method is no longer confined to psychology labs. It's everywhere. From the classrooms you attended to the workplace where you now spend your days. Even your social media feeds are designed with the same principles in mind. The likes you chase, the trends you follow, the outrage you echo, they all feed into a cycle of external validation. But here's the critical question. Who decides what is worthy of approval? Who determines what is good or acceptable? You might think you have the freedom to choose what you value and pursue, but in reality, society has already decided for you. This is the lie that permeates every corner of modern life. The lie that your value, your success, your happiness, and even your identity are determined by how well you conform to the system. And when you don't fit, when your true self begins to push against the walls of societal expectations, you begin to fear rejection, ridicule, and irrelevance. It is in these moments of internal conflict that the control deepens. You start to suppress your true desires, your authentic self, for fear of being labeled an outsider, an anomaly. The system does not need to use physical chains anymore, it simply needs to define what's normal. And once that standard is accepted, the rest of society self-polices, keeping you in line. And as you continue to conform, you reinforce the cycle. The more you seek validation from external sources, the more you fall into the trap of chasing approval, the less you begin to question. The more you fit in, the more you lose sight of who you really are. The truth is, society teaches you that your worth is directly tied to how well you fit into its mold. You are measured by how well you perform in the roles it has assigned to you. Your success isn't about fulfillment or happiness, but about meeting external expectations, be it at school, at work, or even in your personal life. Consider the world around you, from the billboards you see every day, to the textbooks you read in school, to the advertisements you encounter every hour. The message is consistent. Conform, and you will be rewarded. Conform to the system's expectations of what a successful person looks like, and you will gain approval, status, and perhaps even a sense of worth. But what happens when you don't fit the mold? What happens when you resist? When you find yourself asking, is this really me? Is this what I truly want? The answer is clear. Society will label you. You will be called different, rebellious, unfit. And that's the deepest fear we have. Not just rejection, but being labeled as irrelevant, unnecessary, or broken. When you dare to deviate from the script society has written for you, the consequences are immediate. Your life begins to feel less meaningful. You become an outcast, a failure in the eyes of those who have chosen to stay within the lines. And even if your true self begins to whisper, you suppress it. The fear of losing your place in society, of being labeled as other, is often too much to bear. And so, many suppress those whispers of truth, burying their true selves under layers of socially acceptable behaviors. They put on masks to fit in, pretending to be what society expects, while their inner voice fades further into the background. This cycle of conformity doesn't just limit your ability to express yourself. It traps you in a life you didn't consciously choose. It keeps you on a path where external validation becomes the measure of your success. But at what cost? When you live only for approval, you lose sight of who you really are. The mechanisms of control don't just rely on external pressure, they work their way deep into the fabric of society, shaping not only our actions but our very perceptions of what is normal. Philosopher Michel Foucault famously explored this concept of social control, not through overt oppression, but through a far more subtle process, normalization. Foucault argued that society doesn't need to force compliance through chains or punishment. Instead, it defines what is normal. Once a standard of behavior is established, it becomes internalized by individuals, and those who deviate from it are labeled as deviant, abnormal, or even dangerous. The process is insidious because it doesn't feel like oppression, it feels like truth. In fact, you don't even recognize it as control. it becomes so deeply ingrained that it shapes how you see yourself and the world. This normalization of behavior creates an invisible boundary that defines what is acceptable and what isn't. It teaches you that to be normal is to be safe, accepted, and free from judgment. To be different is to risk rejection. This subtle form of control is more dangerous than any physical force, because it doesn't require coercion. Society's standards are accepted without question, and once they are, people begin to self-police. They regulate their thoughts, actions, and desires to fit within these boundaries. In doing so, they willingly give up their autonomy, their voice, and their true self. Foucault's insight is that true freedom isn't just about breaking external chains. It's about challenging the very standards that society has set. Until you can see beyond these norms, until you can question what has been presented as truth, you remain trapped in the system. The lie that controls you isn't always visible, but it is pervasive, and it shapes nearly every aspect of your life. But what happens when you challenge these norms? When you look beyond the veil of societal expectations? Most people, conditioned by years of reinforcement, will not even notice their own conformity. It has become so ingrained that any deviation feels like an unnatural act. Yet, it is precisely this deviation, the questioning, the breaking free, that holds the key to your liberation. The deeper deception is this: society convinces you that any dissatisfaction you feel with your life is entirely your fault. If you're unhappy, it's because you haven't tried hard enough, thought positively enough, or worked tirelessly to manifest success. This narrative places the blame squarely on your shoulders, deflecting any responsibility from the systems that shape your reality. Think about the countless times you've been told, just try harder, or you need to think more positively. The problem, according to this logic, isn't the system itself, it's your failure to adapt to it. This belief traps you in a cycle of self-blame, where you feel like a failure for not meeting impossible standards set by society, all the while ignoring the fact that those standards were never made with your best interest in mind. But let's take a step back and ask, who benefits when you blame yourself for your dissatisfaction? Corporations profit when you buy products to fix the flaws you've been taught to hate. Institutions maintain power when you accept the narrative that success and happiness are earned through constant struggle and sacrifice. The media, ever present in your life, sells you a version of reality that leaves you perpetually yearning for more validation, more approval, more possessions. When you believe that happiness is something to be achieved by conforming to society's expectations, you are constantly reaching for something that is out of reach, yet always within sight. You may get the job, the relationship, the social media likes, but the satisfaction fades quickly. The void inside remains because you've been taught that external achievements are the key to internal happiness. But the truth is far more profound. True fulfillment cannot be found in the approval of others or the acquisition of external success. The system, through its design, keeps you in a state of longing, always striving, but never truly content. And while you're chasing these fleeting moments of satisfaction, you're actually being trained to ignore your true desires, your authentic self. It's as if society has taught you to dismiss your inner voice and focus only on what it deems worthy of pursuit. Here's where the deception goes even deeper. When you begin to feel this emptiness, the system tells you that the answer is to work harder, to push further, to buy more. It shifts the blame onto you, teaching you that if you were just more disciplined or more focused, you would be happy. But this is the lie. Happiness was never the point. The system only works as long as you remain locked in the cycle of endless pursuit, never questioning the legitimacy of the rules you're following. Now, let's take a moment to reflect on who actually benefits from this tightly controlled system. The truth is, there are powerful forces at play, forces that have perfected the art of manipulation through control. When you feel insecure, when you doubt your worth, corporations are quick to sell you products that promise to fix what's wrong with you. Need more confidence. Buy this, want to look better. Buy that, feel unfulfilled. Here's another gadget or service that will supposedly solve your problems. But the reality is that these products never truly fill the void. They only temporarily ease your anxiety, convincing you that you need more material possessions, more validation, more external approval. The cycle continues because the system thrives on your dissatisfaction. It depends on your insecurity. The more you believe you're incomplete, the more you're willing to consume in search of fulfillment. Meanwhile, institutions, whether political, economic, or social, maintain their power and influence over you. The more compliant you are, the less likely you are to challenge the status quo. The system benefits from your obedience because it keeps the gears of society running smoothly, no questions asked. People who follow the script are easier to manage, easier to control. They are the ideal workers, the ideal consumers, the ideal citizens. But the greatest irony of all is that while you believe you're free, when you believe you have the right to make your own choices, you are in fact deeply constrained by an invisible web of social norms, consumerist demands, and institutional rules. Your choices are limited by what is socially accepted, by what you've been taught to desire, by what the system wants you to believe is essential to your life. As sociologist Erich Fromm pointed out, modern freedom is often an illusion. We trade true liberty for the comfort of conformity. We exchange the freedom to explore our own desires for the safety of predictability. This illusion of freedom is so subtle that we often don't recognize it for what it is. We accept our limited freedom because it feels more comfortable than the uncertainty of breaking free. It's easier to comply than to resist. In this way, the system ensures its own survival. It does this not through force, but through persuasion, through the gradual shaping of beliefs and desires. It creates a world where you willingly, and without question, contribute to your own subjugation. You might think you're in control, but the truth is, you've been conditioned to behave in ways that serve the system, not yourself. In today's world, the concept of freedom is so ingrained in our consciousness that it feels almost sacred. We think of freedom as the ability to make choices, to express ourselves, to live as we wish. But what if I told you that much of what you think is freedom is, in fact, a carefully constructed illusion? Take a moment and ask yourself, how many of your choices are truly your own? How many of your desires are shaped by external forces? The truth is, modern freedom is often an illusion. We're told we can do anything, be anyone, but the reality is that our choices are shaped by the framework of societal norms, consumerism, and media influence. The rules of the game may have changed, but the game itself hasn't. We may think we are free, but we are still bound by invisible chains. Erich Fromm's work on freedom pointed out that, in modern society, people willingly trade true liberty for security, order, and belonging. The kind of freedom we're sold is the freedom to choose within a very limited set of options. You can pick your favorite brand, your political party, your career, but all those choices are still shaped by the dominant system. If you choose to step outside of the lines, you risk feeling alienated, isolated, or rejected. So, many people don't. They choose the comfort of conformity over the discomfort of true freedom. And this is the beauty of the system. It doesn't need to force you into submission. It simply convinces you that the only way to feel secure, accepted, and safe is by adhering to the roles it has laid out for you. The illusion of freedom is a powerful tool because it doesn't feel like oppression. You still have the freedom to choose, but the options available to you are limited by a system that subtly controls your desires, your identity, and your beliefs. This kind of control, though it may not be as visible as in past eras, is far more effective. It's not about imposing rules, it's about shaping the very framework within which we make decisions. The choices we think we have are not truly choices at all. We are free to choose within the boundaries of the system, but the moment we step outside those boundaries, we are labeled as outliers, rebels, or troublemakers. Modern society has mastered this art of control. You are encouraged to think of yourself as free, as an individual. But the truth is that your sense of individuality is often dictated by a carefully orchestrated set of influences, designed to keep you compliant. The illusion of freedom keeps you from questioning the very system that confines you. In Plato's famous allegory of the cave, he described prisoners chained in a dark cave, facing a wall. All they could see were shadows cast by objects behind them, and they mistakenly believed these shadows to be the entire reality. When one prisoner escaped and saw the light outside the cave, he realized the truth that what he had seen all his life was just an illusion. But when he returned to share his discovery with the others, they rejected him. They were too accustomed to their shadows, too afraid to face the light. This allegory is a perfect metaphor for the modern human condition. Just as the prisoners in the cave believed the shadows were reality, we are conditioned to believe that the world as it is presented to us through media, culture, and social norms is all that exists. We live our lives facing the wall, believing the shadows are real. and never question the possibility of something beyond our limited view. But some of us start to break free. We begin to notice the cracks in the system, the moments when the shadows seem insufficient, when they fail to explain the emptiness we feel inside. These moments of questioning are uncomfortable. They shine light on the uncomfortable truth. What we thought was real isn't. And the truth is much more complex and unsettling. When we try to share this truth with others, when we speak out against the shadows, we are met with resistance. Society, like the prisoners in the cave, isn't ready to accept this new reality. People are so conditioned to the shadows that they dismiss the truth as absurd or dangerous. The same is true today. When someone challenges the system, when they question the narratives we've all been taught to believe, they are often ridiculed, marginalized, or even silenced. This resistance is not just external, it's internal. We are all prisoners of the cave, conditioned to accept the shadows as reality. We are afraid to step into the light because it means facing an uncomfortable truth. It means confronting the fact that our entire lives, our very identities, have been shaped by an illusionist set of rules and expectations that we never questioned. But here's the key. Once you see the truth, once you break free from the cave, you can never go back. The light may be harsh, but it is also liberating. It's a painful process to face the fact that much of what we've been told is false, but it is the only way to reclaim our freedom. The truth is there, waiting, just beyond the walls of the cave. And the more you see, the more you realize that the system, the lies, are not as powerful as they seem. The power of the system lies in its ability to convince you that it is invincible, that the shadows are all that there is. But once you break free from the cave, you realize that the truth was always there, just waiting for you to see it. Stories shape our world. From childhood fables to national myths, from Hollywood blockbusters to political narratives, stories are the lens through which we view everything. They shape our values, our fears, our hopes. The more a story is repeated, the more it feels like truth. And the most dangerous part of this is that we often don't recognize that we are living within someone else's narrative. Take, for example, the myth of meritocracy. This is the belief that anyone can achieve success through hard work and determination. On the surface, it seems empowering. It suggests that success is available to anyone willing to put in the effort. But beneath this seemingly innocent narrative lies a more insidious truth. If you don't succeed, it must be your fault. This story doesn't just justify inequality, it masks. It places the blame on individuals rather than addressing the systemic barriers that prevent so many from achieving their potential. This narrative is so deeply embedded in our culture that it feels like truth. It's repeated in schools, in workplaces, in media, and even in our personal conversations. We are taught from a young age that success is a direct result of effort. We are told that failure is a reflection of personal inadequacy, not an indication of a rigged system or unjust conditions. This myth allows the powerful to maintain control. It suggests that the system works for everyone, so if you aren't succeeding, it's because you haven't tried hard enough. It's a narrative that comforts the successful while blaming the struggling, all the while ignoring the larger societal forces that determine who succeeds and who fails. But this story doesn't just exist in the political realm, it permeates every aspect of our lives. The idea that your identity is tied to your success, that your worth is measured by your achievements, is a story we are all told from the moment we are born. It shapes our self-esteem, our relationships, our entire worldview. And like all stories, the more it is told, the more we come to believe it. The myth of meritocracy is just one of many stories that society uses to control us. Think about the stories that shape our perceptions of love, success, happiness, and even identity. The more we buy into these stories, the more we lose sight of the truth. We begin to live our lives according to scripts that were written for us, not by us. And as these stories continue to be repeated, they become so deeply ingrained that they feel like part of who we are. The story of meritocracy, for example, isn't just a political narrative, it's something we internalize. It shapes our self-worth, telling us that if we aren't successful, we must be flawed in some way. And the more we believe this, the less likely we are to question it. The stories we believe in shape who we are. They dictate how we see ourselves, how we relate to others, and how we navigate the world. The problem is, most of us don't even realize that we're living in someone else's story. And until we recognize this, we will continue to be controlled by narratives that don't serve us, but rather serve those in power. The myth of meritocracy is one of the most pervasive and powerful stories in modern society. It suggests that if you work hard enough, you will succeed, that success is determined by effort and ability, not by circumstances, birth, or privilege. On the surface, this story seems to promise freedom, fairness, and opportunity for all. But beneath the surface, it's a dangerous illusion. The myth of meritocracy serves to justify inequality. It teaches us that those who succeed do so because they deserve it, while those who fail simply didn't try hard enough. It creates a false dichotomy where success is tied to personal merit and failure is viewed as the result of personal inadequacy. But this oversimplifies a complex reality. It ignores the systemic barriers that prevent so many people from reaching their potential, barriers like socioeconomic status, race, gender, and access to education and opportunity. This myth is so deeply embedded in our culture that it's rarely questioned. It's reinforced by the media, politicians, and even our families. The story is repeated so often that it feels like truth. It becomes internalized, shaping how we see ourselves and others. We begin to believe that anyone can succeed if they just work hard enough, and when we fail, we blame ourselves rather than the system that limits our opportunities. The most dangerous aspect of this myth is that it masks the true nature of inequality. It tells us that success is purely the result of individual effort, while ignoring the social and economic forces that shape who gets ahead and who gets left behind. By promoting this narrative, the system ensures that the people who benefit from it are never questioned. The wealthy and powerful are able to maintain their dominance by perpetuating the myth that their success is solely due to their hard work and intelligence. But the reality is different. Meritocracy is not a level playing field. The game is rigged from the start. Those who have access to better resources, whether it's a private education, connections, or financial support, have a distinct advantage. Success is not just about hard work. It's about having the right opportunities, the right background, and the right networks. The myth of meritocracy distracts us from these realities by focusing on the individual, rather than the structural forces that determine who gets ahead and who falls behind. In this way, meritocracy operates as a tool of control. It convinces people that they are in control of their own destiny, while subtly reinforcing the status quo. Those who are successful believe it's because they earned it, while those who are struggling are told they just need to try harder. This narrative keeps everyone in their place, preventing any meaningful challenge to the structures that perpetuate inequality. But once you begin to see through this myth, you can start to question it. You can begin to understand that success is not just about personal effort, it's about the systems and structures that shape our lives. And when you recognize that, you can start to break free from the lie that keeps you trapped in a cycle of self-blame and conformity. Mass media is one of the most powerful tools of societal control in the modern age. Television, film, the internet, and social media have created a vast and interconnected network that shapes the way we see the world and ourselves. But what we often fail to realize is that mass media doesn't just report on culture, it actively creates it. Media outlets shape the narratives that define our beliefs, our values, and even our desires. From the images we see on the news to the stories we consume on social media, media has the power to dictate what is considered normal or acceptable. It doesn't just reflect reality, it constructs it. The messages that flood our screens day after day create a framework within which we interpret the world. Consider how you see success, beauty, happiness, or even love. These concepts are largely shaped by media. The idealized images of perfect bodies, successful careers, and glamorous lifestyles you see on your feed or in advertisements aren't just images. They are carefully curated narratives designed to sell you something. Whether it's a product, an idea, or a lifestyle, media shapes your desires by telling you what to want, how to want it, and when to get it. But this power of media is not just about selling products, it's about shaping the way we think. Politicians use media to frame issues in a particular light, influencing public opinion and controlling the narrative. News outlets often focus on sensationalized stories that draw attention to certain issues while downplaying others, manipulating how we view the world. The stories we see on the news or in movies aren't neutral. They are strategically crafted to align with certain agendas, shaping how we feel about ourselves and the world around us. Even in our personal lives, media shapes our self-image. How many times have you scrolled through social media and felt inadequate because your life didn't measure up to the curated images of perfection you see? These images are designed to make you feel like you're not enough, that you need to buy something, change something, or act in a certain way to be successful. They teach us that we must constantly strive for an ideal that's unattainable and constantly shifting. This constant comparison creates a cycle of dissatisfaction and self-doubt. The problem with this is that we have become so immersed in these media-driven narratives that we no longer question them. We accept them as reality. We believe the images we see on our screens are real, that the lives we see being lived are the ones we should be living. But these are just stories, constructed and manufactured to sell us a dream that serves the interests of those who control the narrative. And the more we buy into these media-driven stories, the more we lose our own sense of truth. We begin to live not according to our authentic selves, but according to the scripts written for us by those who profit from our insecurities and desires. The more we consume, the more we are controlled, and the less we are able to see the truth. The media doesn't just tell you what's happening, Cliff tells you how to feel about it. It shapes your opinions, your desires, and your worldview, often without you even realizing it. The power of media is the power to define reality itself. But the key to breaking free is to recognize this manipulation. Once you see that the narratives being fed to you are not objective truths, but carefully crafted stories, you can begin to reclaim your mind. You can start to question the images and ideas that are being sold to you, and start creating your own story, one that is based on your own truth, not the one dictated by the media. Language is one of the most powerful tools of control in any society. It shapes how we think, what we value, and how we interact with the world. Words have power not just in what they say, but in what they prevent us from saying. Language can be used to influence our perceptions, silence dissent, and narrow the scope of our thoughts. George Orwell's 1984 is perhaps the most famous exploration of the power of language as a tool of control. In his novel, Orwell imagines a totalitarian regime that manipulates language to prevent people from thinking critically. They create a language called Newspeak, a simplified, restricted version of English that eliminates words and phrases that might allow for subversive thoughts or rebellion. By limiting the range of expression, the government ensures that people can no longer conceptualize ideas like freedom or rebellion, thus quelling any resistance before it can even begin. In today's world, while we may not have a fully Orwellian language like Newspeak, we are still subject to the subtle manipulation of language. Consider the terms we use in everyday life, words like collateral damage instead of civilian deaths, downsizing instead of layoffs, or influencer instead of advertiser. These sanitized terms serve to obscure the reality behind the actions they describe. They make harsh truths more palatable, shifting blame and responsibility away from those in power. By using softer, more neutral language, society makes it easier to accept things that would otherwise be seen as unacceptable. Even more subtle is how language is used to restrict our thinking. When a word or phrase becomes commonplace, we stop questioning its meaning or implications. Think about the phrase "the American dream," a concept so ingrained in our culture that we rarely stop to question it. This idea suggests that anyone, no matter their background, can achieve success through hard work. While this might seem like an inspiring message, it often ignores the structural inequalities that make such success difficult or impossible for many people. Through language, society subtly reinforces the idea that certain systems, beliefs, and behaviors are natural, inevitable, and unquestionable. We may not even realize how deeply these ideas are embedded in our thinking, because the language we use has become second nature. And when we attempt to speak out against these systems or challenge these beliefs, we are often met with resistance. Not necessarily from force, but from the power of language itself. For example, when we talk about issues like poverty or inequality, the language we use often frames them as problems of individual failure rather than systemic injustice. People are labeled as lazy or unmotivated, and solutions are framed in terms of personal responsibility rather than addressing the structural forces that perpetuate inequality. This linguistic manipulation makes it harder for people to see the deeper, systemic causes of these issues and to imagine alternative ways of organizing society. The control of language also extends to the way we think about our own identities. We are taught to describe ourselves in terms of labels: employee, parent, consumer, that limit our understanding of who we truly are. These labels restrict our thinking and define us by external markers of success, often reinforcing the very system that controls us. When we define ourselves by the roles society assigns to us, we lose sight of our true selves. But the beauty of language is that it is not fixed, it is fluid. Words can be redefined, a new language can be created. Once we become aware of the way language is being used to control our thoughts and perceptions, we can begin to reclaim it. We can choose to speak and think in ways that reflect our true values, not the ones imposed upon us. Language, once you recognize its power, becomes a tool of liberation rather than control. It allows us to break free from the chains of imposed norms and to articulate our desires, our truths, and our vision for a better world. The first step is to question the language we use every day and to challenge the narratives that seek to define us. Only then can we begin to free our minds and our society from the grip of linguistic control. Fear is one of the most insidious tools of control. It operates silently, shaping our thoughts and actions in ways we don't even recognize. It doesn't need to be a loud or overt force. It simply needs to exist in the background of our minds, guiding our decisions, keeping us compliant, and preventing us from breaking free. Think about the many fears that have shaped your life: the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of being judged, the fear of the unknown. These fears are not innate. They are created, nurtured, and reinforced by society. The fear of being other, of standing out, of not fitting in is one of the most powerful tools used to maintain control. It is the fear of not being accepted, of being excluded from the social fabric, that keeps us tethered to the expectations of the system. But fear is not just an external force, it is internalized. We not only fear society's judgment, but we also learn to police ourselves. We become our own jailers. This process, known as internalized repression, happens gradually, over time, until we begin to suppress our true selves, our desires, and our aspirations because we fear the consequences of expressing them. We begin to silence our own voices, dismiss our own dreams, and bury our authentic selves under layers of self-censorship. This internalized fear is so deeply ingrained that it often goes unnoticed. We convince ourselves that it's normal to feel anxious about being judged or rejected. We tell ourselves that it's natural to conform, to stay within the lines, and to avoid rocking the boat. But this is the trap. The system doesn't need to force us into submission, it simply teaches us to fear the consequences of not conforming. We fear the discomfort of standing out, the social isolation that comes with defying the norm. And so, we choose safety over freedom, conformity over authenticity. But fear is not just about external judgment, it's also about the fear of failure, of not measuring up, of falling short of the expectations we've internalized. This fear of inadequacy keeps us striving for approval and validation, even when it leaves us unfulfilled. We are taught to fear imperfection, to fear mistakes, and to fear the unknown. These fears keep us stuck in a cycle of striving for external success, while neglecting our true desires and needs. Yet, the truth is that fear is a construct. It's not inherent to our being, it's taught to us. It is a learned response to the messages society feeds us about what is acceptable, what is successful, and what is valuable. Fear is a tool that keeps us in line, that prevents us from questioning the system, from stepping outside the boundaries. And the more we give into it, the more we reinforce our own limitations. But here's the paradox. The only way to truly be free is to confront that fear, to face the discomfort of standing out, of challenging the status quo, of embracing imperfection and uncertainty. Once you recognize that fear is not an inherent part of who you are, but a construct created by the system, you can begin to break free from its hold. The first step is awareness. Acknowledge the fears that have been placed upon you and question them. Why do you fear rejection? Why do you fear failure? Why do you fear not fitting in? When you begin to ask these questions, you start to unravel the layers of fear that have kept you confined. And in doing so, you begin to reclaim your freedom. Fear will always be a part of the human experience, but it no longer has to control you. Once you recognize its origin and its purpose, you can choose to face it, to move through it, and to live authentically despite it. True liberation comes when you no longer let fear dictate your choices, your identity, or your path. The most insidious form of control is not what is imposed on us by others, but what we impose on ourselves. It is the prison we build within our own minds, the invisible chains that bind us to a life of conformity, fear, and unfulfilled potential. This is the power of self-censorship, when we internalize societal norms so deeply that we begin to regulate our own thoughts, desires, and behaviors in order to fit in, to belong, and to be accepted. Self-censorship begins early in life, when we start to learn what is considered acceptable and what is not. We are taught which ideas are worthy of expression and which ones should be suppressed. Over time, we begin to silence our own voice. We stop questioning, stop challenging, and stop imagining a reality outside the one society has defined for us. We learn to suppress our true desires, our authentic selves, because we fear the consequences of being different, of standing out, of being seen as other. But the prison of self-censorship is not just about avoiding social rejection, it's about internalizing the belief that we are not worthy of living authentically. We convince ourselves that our true desires are flawed, that our dreams are unrealistic, or that our voices are not important enough to be heard. We are taught to believe that the system's rules are the only rules worth following, and any deviation from them is a sign of failure or inadequacy. The result is that many of us live lives that are not our own. We chase goals that others have set for us. We seek approval from sources that don't align with our values, and we conform to expectations that make us feel safe, but leave us unfulfilled. We become characters in someone else's story, playing roles that society has written for us, rather than creating our own narrative. But this cycle of self-censorship can be broken. The first step is recognizing that the thoughts and desires we suppress are not wrong. They are the essence of who we truly are. They are the parts of ourselves that have been buried under layers of societal conditioning and fear. Once we acknowledge that we are capable of thinking and living outside the constraints of the system, we can begin to reclaim our true selves. This process of reclamation is not easy. It requires courage to confront the beliefs that have been instilled in us, to challenge the narrative that we've been told is true, and to question the limitations we've placed on ourselves. But it is the only path to true freedom. When we stop censoring ourselves, we begin to live authentically, to pursue goals that truly resonate with us, and to express ideas that reflect our unique perspective. Self-censorship is not just about controlling what we say, it's about controlling what we believe, what we desire, and what we are capable of achieving. The power to break free from this prison lies within us. We must choose to silence the internal voices of doubt and fear that tell us we can't be who we truly are. Only then can we begin to rewrite the story of our own lives. One of the most deeply ingrained illusions in society is the concept of normality. From a young age, we are taught to define ourselves by the standards set by others, to measure our worth against an ever-changing set of expectations that promise safety and acceptance. But what if I told you that the idea of normality is a construct designed to keep you confined within the limits of what is acceptable, what is socially approved? The truth is that normality is not an inherent truth. It is a set of expectations created by those in power to maintain order and stability within a system. It's the standard by which we measure our lives, our successes, and our failures. But the problem is, this idea of normality is never universal. It's designed to fit a narrow definition of what it means to be successful, to be happy, to be normal, and it does so by stifling individuality, creativity, and diversity. When you conform to this idea of normality, you begin to silence the parts of yourself that don't fit into the mold. You suppress the desires, the dreams, and the passions that make you who you truly are, because you're taught that they're abnormal or unacceptable. You become afraid of standing out, of being different, because society tells you that to be different is to be wrong, to be flawed. This fear of deviating from the norm is what keeps most people trapped in a life that isn't theirs. They're afraid to pursue their true desires because they don't fit the narrative society has set for them. The pressure to conform to be normal is so powerful that it keeps people in a cycle of self-doubt and self-repression. But the reality is that normality is just a social construct, a false idea that has been imposed upon us to maintain control. The power of this illusion lies in the fact that it feels like truth. We accept the idea of normality as natural because it's all we've ever known. But when we take a step back and question it, we begin to see that it's not natural at all. It's a set of rules created to keep us in line. These rules limit our potential, restrict our growth, and prevent us from living authentically. The moment you break free from the constraints of normality, you begin to see the world in a completely different way. You realize that there is no single definition of success, happiness, or identity. Your true self is not defined by societal standards. It is defined by your own choices, your own desires, and your own values. It's time to stop accepting the idea of normality as the ultimate standard of truth. Normality is a myth. It's a limitation. True freedom comes when you let go of the need to fit in, when you embrace your uniqueness and stop apologizing for it. You were never meant to fit into someone else's mold. You were meant to create your own path, to define your own success, and to live your life on your own terms. And that is the moment when you truly begin to live not by society's rules, but by your own. Now that we have explored the ways in which society controls us through language, fear, self-censorship, and the illusion of normality, it's time to focus on how we can break free from these chains and reclaim our freedom. The journey to liberation begins not with the world outside, but with the world within. You must first recognize that the control you've experienced is not natural, nor is it permanent. It has been imposed upon you, and most importantly, it can be dismantled. The first step is awareness. You cannot break free from a system you do not understand. You must recognize the ways in which you've been controlled, how the stories you've been told have shaped your beliefs, how the fears you've internalized have influenced your actions, and how the pressure to conform has kept you from living authentically. Awareness is the key that unlocks the door to your liberation. Once you recognize the patterns that have shaped your life, you can begin to reclaim your true self. Reclamation means rejecting the narratives that were imposed upon you and instead embracing your own story. It's about reconnecting with your true desires, your unique identity, and your personal vision for a fulfilling life. This requires courage, because it means stepping outside the comfort zone of the familiar. Even though it may be uncomfortable or even painful, reclaiming your freedom is not just about breaking away from external control. It's about reclaiming your mind. The system has conditioned you to think within a narrow framework, but you are not limited to that framework. You have the power to redefine what success, happiness, and identity mean to you. You can choose to live by your own values, not by the values dictated by others. The second step is action. Awareness without action is merely knowledge. It is only through conscious effort that you can begin to reshape your life. Action means making choices that align with your true desires, even if they challenge the norms and expectations of society. It means following your own path, even when it feels uncertain or risky. It's about having the courage to live authentically, despite the pressures to conform. But this process doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual, ongoing journey of self-discovery and transformation. It requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to face the discomfort that comes with change. It also requires self-compassion, recognizing that you don't have to be perfect, and that it's okay to stumble along the way. The important thing is to keep moving forward, to keep choosing freedom over conformity. The third step is to embrace the discomfort of breaking free. When you begin to step outside of the boundaries that society has set for you, you will encounter resistance both from others and from within yourself. You will face doubts, fears, and internalized beliefs that try to pull you back into the fold. But it's in these moments of resistance that your true power lies. The discomfort you feel is a sign that you are on the right path, that you are pushing against the limitations that have held you back. The journey to freedom is not an easy one. It requires breaking free from the lies that have shaped your reality, confronting your fears, and living authentically. But once you begin to walk this path, you will find that the weight of conformity no longer has power over you. You will realize that true freedom comes not from the external world, but from within. You have the power to define your life, to choose your own path, and to live according to your true self. The greatest lie ever sold is the one that tells you that you are limited, that you are small, and that you must fit into someone else's mold. But once you break free from that lie, you will see that you are limitless, and that the only boundaries that exist are the ones you allow to remain. So, I ask you again, whose life are you living? Whose dreams are you chasing? Whose fears are you carrying? The path to freedom begins with a single choice, the choice to reclaim your mind, your desires, your identity, and your truth. The choice is yours. Will you step into your power and break free from the greatest lie ever sold? This is just the beginning.